All right. How is everybody doing today? This is episode number 5 of Calibrated Live. We got a few things to go over today. Obviously, we have a Russian missile strike that we'll get into. We did not get as much footage from this one. So, the censorship regime is back in place. Last missile strike obviously was in the heart of Kiev. Kiev has some of the lowest, censorship and mobilization, and just Kiev and Lvov are pretty removed from the war in totality. The people there are also removed. So when it comes to footage and actually seeing stuff, usually when there's strikes in highly populated areas like Kiev or Lvov, we end up seeing them. When it's in places that are much more controlled, such as like Odessa, Kryvyi Rog, Zaporozhye, places like that, we see a lot less of the missile strikes. But before we get into that, I wanted to go over the map. So let me bring that up for everybody. All right, so as you can see right here, these are the missile strikes. We'll go over those a little bit later, but first I want to do a frontline update. We are coming up, or we've passed, Orthodox Christmas. And generally, when the Christmas season is around for both the Russians and the Ukrainians, the hostilities slow a little bit. So we've definitely seen a slowdown in offensive actions from the Russians, and just overall, the intensity of combat sort of slowed down over the Christmas break, and now it's starting to pick back up. It's Monday now. Christmas is over. Everybody's back to doing their thing. So the Russians have continued their offensive operations to remove the Krinky bridgehead. That is ongoing. We saw a video of a Russian tank being destroyed there. I believe this morning, today. So, the Russians are still pushing in this area, trying to force the Ukrainians out. The Ukrainians are continuously crossing the river. And I see probably 5 or 6 videos a day of UAVs dropping, drones dropping grenades on Ukrainian boats carrying 5 or 6 people across the river. So still ongoing fighting in that area. Around Marinka, I have greatly expanded the potential zone of control of the Russians. The Russians are pushing out in every direction now from Marinka. Once the Ukrainians were forced to leave the urban area, there's just not a lot here to hold. The next line of defense is Pobieda, and then around this area through these tree lines. This is a massive tree line right here. And back around these water reservoirs. So when we're looking at this map, I just want everybody to think about what comes next. So since the Battle of Marinka is now over, the Ukrainians are going to be forced to develop the next defensive line if they haven't already. And the Russian goal should be something like this, securing everything up to these reservoirs. Boop, 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 like this, trying to take over this portion of Horlivka or Horyoivka. I don't know. I'm going to mess that one up. But the Russians are wanting something that looks like this, bink. I'm just doing this real quick, so it's going to look ugly, but I don't care. Bink, right? So something like that is the goal of, progressing out of Marinka. So the reason why Marinka was so important for both sides is because it is the last, I would say, major developed area, and it had been the front line for Ukraine for so long. They had built it up. It is the defense of the 0532, which is now exposed. Pobieda is the last little area that the Ukrainians hold, protecting this road access down here. Once the Russians are on this road, movement is just going to be easier. If you look at what the Russians are moving through down here, there's just like one little road here. You like this whole southern Donetsk area is just not very well connected via road or rail, but for that matter. So Vuhledar will become extremely exposed as progression around Marinka continues. Novomikhailivka has become incredibly exposed. The Russians were actually in this part of the settlement, but were forced out. We didn't get any geolocations of them. I mean, we had geolocations of Ukrainians shelling this area, and then the Russians sort of just like moving back. The Ukrainians are doing everything in their power still to hold every single inch of territory, which I personally believe is the wrong way to go about this. But that's where we are at with their strategy. So as the expansion around Marinka continues, you're looking at something like this, and then it will probably stop with the occasional attacks in the direction of. I'm going to have to wait for somebody to say this one before I'm going to even give it a try, right? But what I do expect is continued Russian progression up into Krasnohorivka here, and then also pressure from the greater Donetsk area over this way. So that's the goal of the Russians in this area. I think this is probably one of the most important parts of the front. Now that Marinka has closed, we'll see if the Russians are able to expand upon this new gain right here. Up towards Avdiivka, we have one small update right here. The Russians have just pushed out in this area. Once again, likely they're wanting to try to control this entire field and then gain control over this entire dacha area, create a long front line around the Avdiivka coke plant, and then begin assaulting into the city. Once this area falls here, the Russians will be able to pressure the city from multiple different directions. Once they get around this reservoir and they have a good defensive position, they'll also be able to begin flanking down into this area. Ukrainian supply in this whole area right here is extremely difficult. The Russians have very easy logistics with Donetsk being right here. They have easy cover and concealment for all of their stuff, not so much in the city, but just this entire urban conglomerate right here. The Russians do their best to keep military equipment out of this area because the Ukrainians, any excuse the Ukrainians have to shell Donetsk, they will take. And if there's Russian equipment in here, they will continue to do that. So what I'm more referring to is just this ginormous urban conglomerate that is this entire area. Makes supply for Avdiivka, this front line is particularly right here, incredibly easy, whereas the Ukrainians have to go from Orlivka about in some areas, almost 8 kilometers, 7 kilometers to keep their supply stable, right, in Avdiivka, whereas the Russians have to go like 20 meters, basically, from any of their rear positions. They're keeping their soldiers warm in the winter is easier, obviously, on the front line, and men in trenches are going to be exposed, but rotation is possible for the Russians in this area, much easier than it is for the Ukrainians, who have this one road that they can use to basically get out of town. It's under FPV watch, it's under artillery watch, and another thing that makes the Avdiivka defense very difficult, and I've talked about this before, is the fact that the Russians are able to place artillery in this area right here. The Russians are able to place artillery down in this area around the Donetsk airport and stuff like that, whereas the Ukrainians cannot afford to put any artillery in this area. It's just way too exposed. The artillery support is further back, and that means that the distance from an artillery piece to the front line is 9 miles at some points. Artillery support is just not as readily available, and with continued destruction of self-propelled guns and artillery systems, the Ukrainians are becoming less and less able to direct artillery fire in support of this Avdiivka operation. Again, what this has become for me is exactly what Bakhmut was last year. Some of the Western officials and news agencies, mainstream media, are now talking about how the Ukrainians need to be on a defensive posture for basically all of 2024, leading into 2025, and then in 2025 they will use their built-up reserves to go on the offensive again. And this is exactly the same rhetoric we heard when Bakhmut was going on. And instead of retreating from Bakhmut when the fighting was actually in the city, the Ukrainians decided to do the whole Fortress Bakhmut thing, where they sacrificed a lot of their most ideological and proficient units and soldiers to defend the city, which they weren't even able to hold it after all of that commitment. That really put a damper on the force accumulation and availability for the Ukrainian counteroffensive. Instead of having maybe 100,000 men from slowly retreating from Bakhmut, attriting the Russians, but giving them territory, basically space for time, the Ukrainians decided to hold this. And instead of having 100,000 men for this offensive, they had 40 to 60,000 men available. So plus the armor losses in Bakhmut, plus the artillery losses, plus the artillery expenditures and everything else, it just really hampered the counteroffensive operation. And I believe that's the exact same thing that's now happening in Avdiivka. I mean, you can look at the salient and just try to comprehend how the Russians might not be in the worst position of the two here. And if the Ukrainians want to keep this pocket open, continue forcing men into this salient, I mean, who's going to stop them? Why would the Russians stop the Ukrainians from continuously attriting themselves in a very unfortunate area? They won't. And the Ukrainians are now making the exact same mistake where they could retreat slowly, cause significant attrition to the Russians as they battle through this area, but backing up consistently, covering each other's retreats, getting out of this pocket. And then once this pocket is secured, building a whole second line of defense and a third line of defense while you're slowly retreating and saving all that manpower. They're not doing that. They're repeating their same mistakes in Bakhmut. So this could change, but I doubt it. The Russian offensive here has been going on for about 3 months now. It's expanded out from Krasnohorivka all the way up here, down here. We've seen the expansion into the city from the south. We've seen the progression around Severne. The Ukrainians have just already overcommitted once again to Avdiivka. They don't really seem to learn lessons from the past, which is not the best when you're talking about a military operation. So I think we're just seeing a repeat of Bakhmut in that area. It did expand the Bakhmut claim, unconfirmed zone of control in this area, just to cover this forest plantation that comes to us from Syriac maps. And then up here to the north, Turney has been turned green. It was confirmed by geolocation, and no changes around Sinkivka for right now, around Kupiansk area. Again, the Russians need to continue applying pressure across the entire front. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians are still holding salients in Bilohorivka, the whole entire Seversk salient, which is actually pretty defensible. So this one's not as time sensitive as like Avdiivka or this salient right here on this side of the river that the Ukrainians are holding, where the Russians are expanding. Eventually, I believe we will see something. I'll just draw it out for you. Basically, by the end of 2024, I expect the map to look something like this, likely, with the Russians at Kramatorsk, Chasiv Yar being potentially captured through 2024 if the Ukrainians stay on the defensive. Pushing out into New York potentially, down Avdiivka being captured. I don't know how much is going to come out of that. After Avdiivka is captured, expansion around Marinka, and then down here to Vuhledar, kind of collapsing the southern pocket. This is what I expect the map to look like at the end of 2024. And then once Kramatorsk falls, if the Ukrainian army is still around to fight, if they've received funding, this is what I expect the map to look like. Barring a collapse, which I can't, I can't predict the future. So I can't tell you guys if there's going to be a collapse or anything like that. But for right now, the Russians are just going to continue putting pressure across the whole map. I wouldn't expect any large aero offensives anytime soon. It's just a trit, and that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. So now I'll show you guys the strike map. So just so you guys can see it, because it's kind of hard to get the colors to work out. I'll put up the old missile strikes as well, so you guys can see those. Old is orange, new is yellow. You can see the targeting was very different this time, almost completely different. We had a bunch of ballistic missile strikes in Zaporozhye, in Kryvyi Rog, Odessa. I believe Nikolaev was also hit, and Kherson. I did not mark those just because they were not very talked about, so I can't be sure what the munition was or what happened. There were also Garin strikes throughout the entire region. I did not mark those because, once again, I have no geolocation and I have no idea. The only one I know for sure was Odessa was hit by Garin 2s. So we had strikes in Kharkov, Dnipropetrovsk, and then over here in this region, we saw strikes here, and here. And if you guys will allow me to pull open my phone, I know it's not the most professional, but I have a Rybar map here that talks about some of the installations that were hit. So in this area, you might have seen a Ukrainian propaganda take like a photo of a shopping mall that the Russians supposedly hit. They actually did not hit the shopping mall. They hit a railroad section that was directly behind the shopping mall. They destroyed that railroad section. I don't know what they were trying to interdict, or what purpose what the purpose of the strike was on a railroad. Railroads can be fixed usually pretty quickly. The Russians fixed them within like a day or two. So I don't really know what was happening there, but that appears to be the target. These were all the cruise missile strikes right here in the east. There were not as many cruise missiles fired in this salvo. It looks like potentially around 20 were fired. This was a much different. It was a very unique strike compared to the last two, which were sort of similar. There were also 7 MiGs that took off that fired Kinzhals from different sides of the into Ukraine from different areas of Russia, and there were reported by the Ukrainians 4 Kinzhal hits. They said that they went 0 for 4 on the Kinzhal strikes. I'm going to take you guys now over to Twitter to show you some of that, because I wanted to go over a couple of different posts in reference to this. Let's go here. Ukraine battle maps. And I used him not because he's a good source, because he's not, but because he basically repeats exactly what the MOD says. So this is from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. Ukrainian Air Defense shot down only 18 of 51 missiles, 35% fired by the Russians today. Could be true, could not be true. I don't know. But there's definitely downplaying the use of X-101 or KH-101 cruise missiles, which are what is fired by the Tu-95s. There were 12 Tu-95s airborne, so this missile count is definitely low for that number of strategic aircraft in the air for these strikes. 18 for 24, let's just say that's correct. Still missing, I mean, that's 6 successful cruise missile strikes. We have 0 for 4 on Kinjal missiles, which means that, you know, they didn't intercept a single one. That is 4 very sensitive targets that were hit by Russia's, probably their ace up the sleeve sort of missile that they have. They only use it for special targets, time sensitive targets, heavily protected targets. So this is an important takeaway from yesterday's missile strike. 0 for 8 on the KH-22 missiles. Again, pretty bad performance. They say that they can't intercept these. I don't know what the special, I don't know what's so special about this missile that they can intercept when they claim to have intercepted 15 Kinjals. They're not, I don't know, but they say that they can basically never intercept these KH-22s. They also went 0 for 6 on Iskander M's, which I don't really know how they know if it's an Iskander M or an Iskander. I don't know how they're differentiating these based off of just explosions, because you don't really know what's being launched. However, there's also rumors that the Koreans have sent their version of the Iskander in a deal with the Russians. We've already seen North Korean artillery, so that we do know that a deal was made. However, we don't know if the missiles were included. I tend to err on the side of caution when it comes to these rumors. We did see it with the Garens, which the U.S. was right about that, but they are trying to do this whole axis of evil thing right now. North Korea, China, Iran, so on and so forth. And this is a good way to do it. The North Koreans are giving the Russians to fire missiles on Ukraine. Could be true, but it's not. I have a sneaking suspicion that they will just claim all of that stuff whenever they want to extend the narrative that, this is the axis of evil being formed. These are our enemies. They're working together against our interests, sort of deal, which they kind of are. But 0 for 2 on KH-31P missiles, and then 8 for 8 on Shahed drones, which is not true, because yesterday we saw a video of multiple explosions in Odessa region from Shahed. That's a lie, which means that this whole thing could be a lie, but I'm just presenting the Ukrainian take on it so you guys can see it. Now let me go to my profile, and there I am. Look at that stupid fucking idiot. Me teasing people because people are stupid as hell. I don't know if I had anything else I wanted to show you guys on here. I don't think so. Okay. So that takes care of the missile strike in totality then. All right. Let me come back over here to the thing. Let me stop sharing this. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and throw them up in the chat. Let's do another little Q&A. I had fun with that yesterday. So if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to put them in there. I'll try to answer. Oh, and I got to show you my other dog too. Atlas, come here. Come here. Come here. He's lazy. He's old. Come here, old man. No, not you, Sam. Come here. Ooh, come here. She gets jealous. All right. Here's this dog. He's very cute. This is my boy. He's been my boy for many, many years now. All right. Stop. Okay. Let's see. What's your opinion on the secret talks? Oh, hell, before I start answering questions, let me actually bring back up, well, you guys saw the map, but the missile strikes, somebody had asked me a question to talk about what they've been targeting. They are definitely not targeting infrastructure. I got dog hair all over me. They're not targeting civilian infrastructure like energy infrastructure and so on, so forth, stuff like that, like they did last year. I haven't seen a single confirmed strike on any power infrastructure. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that the Russians were probably not going to do that this winter. It's a little late anyway to start making it count. So I don't think it's the play. I don't think they want to draw attention to the Ukraine conflict any more than it already is. They don't want to start going after civilians, even if it's dual use. So the targets seem to be almost all military or military industrial complex based. So drone production, stuff like that, high value military targets, but no infrastructure strikes so far. So I forgot to mention that, but I just wanted to throw it in there. Let's see. Anybody got any questions? Let's see. What's your opinion on a possible Russian attack on Sumy or Kharkov? I just don't see the purpose of it from a military standpoint right now, unless the Ukrainians are so overstretched that they have no way to defend it. There are still fortifications, minefields, stuff like that. It's a lot of work. You're exposing yourself in a new area. You're invading, I guess, another area of Ukraine, which can bring more attention back to Ukraine. It could also wrap this thing up quicker if the West sees that Ukraine can't actually defend the regions that it's holding. It's like, well, why are we going to send money over to this sinking ship? So I don't think we're going to see much new Russian action outside of the Donetsk area, or the Donbass area. They don't. I just don't see it happening. I don't see the reason why. They'll push in those areas when there's no more Ukrainian army to defend those areas, or there's no Ukrainian government instructing the Ukrainian military to defend those areas. That'll be the deciding factor there. I heard something big is going to happen around January 15th. Have you ever heard anything like that? Yeah, there's always these rumors. Everybody's always waiting for the next offensive, the next big thing. The Russians don't go off of specific dates. I have not seen them do any symbolic attacks or anything like that, at least that I can, discern. So I would not, pick any particular day. The 15th, that's just a day. Anything could happen any day, I guess, but no, I do not expect anything to happen on, the 15th, because of if you know about it and I know about it, everybody knows about it, probably not going to happen unless, you're Ukrainian and then you tell everybody exactly what you're going to do months in advance. And then you waste 60,000 man army on a stupid counteroffensive. So that, it is what it is. What's your opinion on the secret talks at Duel's airport? I don't think any talks are happening anywhere. Secret. I don't know why you would make them secret. You would make them pretty open, unless it's incredibly embarrassing for either side, or it's a surrender or something, which is just not happening. Let's see. Okay, here we go. I got a super chat. Do you think all assumptions in the West last year that Russia would run out of missiles, etc., was based on Western stock production and capacity? No, I believe that. Well, there is that thinking. Yes, I guess it plays into it. But I really do believe that the West thought that the that the Russians would be hit much, much harder by the sanction regime than they were. China continued to trade with Russia. India continued to trade with Russia. And Kazakhstan actually significantly increased its trade with Russia, which means that Kazakhstan, China, and India were basically helping Russia evade sanctions. They had the ability to get Western materials through these countries and then through it like as a third party, and then trade with them in that way. So Russian missile production was never hurt. I really do think that the idea was that Russia was basically down and out, and with these sanctions, it was going to cripple them. It just never happened. And now, the Russians have missile production that's at a war level, basically. Wartime level. Let's see. I'm knowing the trader that got his. I have no idea what happened to that guy who stole that helicopter. The one Russian pilot who stole the helicopter and then flew it into Ukrainian territory, where then either he killed his co his flight crew or the Ukrainians killed him. Either way, that's just shitty. But what's the situation in Robotny? Ukraine retreating? Yeah, so they're not trying to retreat. They're trying to hold on to everything they can, but the Russians are putting a lot of pressure there. Like I said, the weather has worsened significantly in the past couple of days, and on top of that, it is Orthodox Christmas, so things are very slow in general right now. But I would expect movement in the Robotny area after things clear up and everything goes back to normal. Do you know anything about the NATO staff that were hit in the previous strike? I don't really heavily invest in the idea that there are NATO bunkers being hit and stuff like that. It's always potential that there are NATO, advisors and so forth in country, and they could be being, they could get targeted. But the idea that there's like Kinjal strikes on these sophisticated NATO bunkers full of NATO personnel and officers and whatever, it's just not realistic. It's not really how. I mean, that's what I believe personally, that that's not happening. So I think that that's sort of one of those RU information space, like sort of like myth things that we always talk about. For some reason, I don't know why they always talk about it. I talk about it. I talk against it because I don't believe that it's actually happening. Um, my dog is not a boxer. Whoever said he's a boxer, there you go. My dog is not a boxer. My dog is an American bulldog. Let's see. Also, you said something about Abrams yesterday. What do you mean? Oh, I believe we're going to see an Abrams getting destroyed in the Kupiansk area very soon. I think that the Ukrainians are going to be forced to basically put them into action. They've just been sitting around for so long. So I think that's coming up. That's on the docket. I predicted the Leopard 1A5. I put out a tweet that said I think we're going to see one very soon, and like within 12 hours we saw one get hit. So I'm just kind of memeing a little bit, seeing if it works out. We just have reports that the Abrams are now being sent to Kupiansk, so very soon. What hair doing? Hair not doing anything, boys. Hair not doing anything. And you know what? I got a good shaped head. I don't give a shit. Who cares about hair? Honestly, you got a girlfriend. I'm not trying to impress anybody. What do I need hair for? I got hair here. I got hair here. We're good. We're chilling. We're chilling on it. And when I wake up in the morning, guys, I don't have to do jack shit to get ready. I don't have to do my hair. Don't have to do anything. I put some lotion on my face. I'm out the door. That's all I do. Let's see. Do you think the U.S. will give another 60 billion to Ukraine? Will there be another accounting error? There will always be accounting errors when it comes to U.S. defense spending. It's like death and taxes. It's a guarantee in life. But do I think they're going to get 60 billion? No, I think that they are going to get funding. I definitely believe that they're going to get their fiscal funding, but in terms of the military funding, I think it's going to be cut. 40 billion, maybe 30 billion, something in that range, I think is more likely. But we'll see. It's a political season, and you can't afford to be taking risks in a political season, especially when you are in Joe Biden's position, with the position that he's put the U.S. in around the globe, how we're being perceived around the globe. It's going to be a very rough election season for the Democrats if they play their cards wrong, and that giving 60 billion to Ukraine would be fuel for that fire. Question. Here in the UK in World War I, we had around 700,000 deaths and had a similar pre-war population. How much more can Ukraine take? Well, they're trying to mobilize an additional 500,000 men, which, if you're doing math, why do you need that many men? They've only lost, what, 13,000, 14,000 men? So Ukraine really doesn't need to mobilize 500,000 men, but they're doing it. So 2 plus 2, it's just not making 4 right now, and it's very, very confusing to me. But the Russians are that I believe that what the Ukrainians are trying to do is sort of match what the Russians have done with their increased recruitment, their mobilization, potentially silent mobilization, and reports coming in is basically that the mobilization is failing pretty dramatically. There's just not a good pool of men left to use. They've gone through what I would consider the fighting demographic of men, which are everybody outside of Kiev and Lvov and some other protected areas of Ukraine. They haven't been pulling men from these areas. Also, Ukraine is losing a significant number of men each month to desertion, not from the military, but getting out of their mobilization, leaving the country, emigrating away. And I don't blame them at all. That's what I would be doing. But I can't tell you how long Ukraine is going to be fighting because I just don't have the straight statistics in front of me. If I did, I would give you an answer, but I would say 2024 is going to be a difficult year. We don't see training programs in Europe for Ukrainian soldiers as much anymore. It's just the whole I guess zeitgeist, maybe not zeitgeist, but the whole narrative last year of the counteroffensive and so on, having these NATO trained brigades and stuff, it just didn't work out. And it just doesn't seem like it's being repeated, which is going to put Ukraine at a manpower disadvantage here soon. Do you think those airstrikes have crippled Ukraine as a whole? No. I think what it has done is it has put a significant dent in the Ukrainian military industrial complex. I think the Ukrainians have been trying to prepare their military industrial complex for a long time during this SMO because there's always been this possibility of a there's always been this possibility that the Western support would end up faltering, right? So the Ukrainians have been trying to make their own drone production lines and stuff like that. And that's what that's what I believe the Russians are now targeting. I also believe that the Russians have very good sources within the Ukrainian military leadership and political leadership, and that their intel is very, very accurate when it comes to these strikes. I believe that they were basically given a list of military industrial complex sites. I have no confirmation of this, just the way that these strikes have been going, the pace that these strikes have been continuing at every couple of days or so, the involvement of Kinzhals and other high performance weapon systems makes me think that the Russians got a whole list of possible targets to strike. And that's what they're going after right now. Will Gonzalo Lira ever be released? I don't honestly. I don't know what to. I don't think he will ever be released. I don't think he's probably alive right now. Unfortunately, I hope that he makes it out, and I hope that he's safe. I hope I hope that the Ukrainian government collapses and all those prisoners are let go. But you're dealing with basically fascism. I mean, they're going to make people disappear who they don't like. It's a classic authoritarian situation. I mean, it definitely happens in that part of the world a lot more too. I hope he either does his 5 years and gets to go away, gets to leave and go home back to the U.S. hopefully, but I don't know. Avdiivka win. I keep seeing this a lot. Like there's some timeline on this Avdiivka offensive, or like there's some timeline on the Russian offensive. There's no time. There's no incentive to do something quick. See, a lot of the pro-Ukrainians who say stuff like this come from this perspective of Ukraine, where Ukraine is running out of time, or they're just very impatient in their analysis and thinking anyway. So it's oh, why isn't this happening? Why isn't this happening? Well, we could ask the same thing about the Rabitny offensive, right? Nothing happened there, and thousands of more men were dying. Like it just doesn't even make any sense. The Russians will do what they need to do, and they're going to do it in whatever time they want to do it. If you want to see more Russian casualties, it, you would want it to go faster. I mean, that's what you're asking for. If you're asking for a quick finish to this, but the Russians aren't looking for that. They're conserving manpower and pushing the way that they want to push. If you remember in my last live, I showed you that Wall Street Journal post that was talking about artillery expenditure for the Ukrainians and how the Ukrainians were firing about 7,000 artillery shells a day compared to the 5,000 Russian artillery shells being fired per day during the summer offensive. And now in December, it looks like the Ukrainians are firing about 2,000 shells per day, whereas the Russians are firing 10,000 shells per day. So, I mean, a 5 times increase in shells. You have aviation and deep strike capabilities that the Ukrainians don't have. They're just going to fight this war until there is no AFU left standing. So that's how Avdiivka is doing. If Gonzalo went back to prison, he's not the other prisoners. Let's see. Don't forget to answer the Norwegian super chat. I think I did, didn't I? Oh wait, did I not? Yeah, I did. Do you think the West assumption about missile strikes? Yeah, I did that one. Let's see. Let's see. What do you think about Russia's final goal? Just the objectives stated at the beginning of the SMO. Take back all the territory annexed by take back all of the territory of the annexed regions and eventually take all of Ukraine, question mark. I think Russia's final goal is ever evolving. I think that they came in with an idea about how the West would react, how Ukraine would fight, and that was just completely wrong. And to both sides' detriment, in my personal opinion. I think if the Russians went in different, it might not end up so good for them if they went in with a completely almost Israeli style, assault on Ukraine. I think that the world would be looking at Russia in a much different light right now. The global economy would not be looking at Russia so favorably as they are right now. So I think that Russia's goals are ever evolving, and eventually Russia will do what they need to do and secure what they need to secure. Is that all of Ukraine? If it happens like that, it happens like that. I don't think Russia's going to turn up its nose to that much territory. Even the Western regions. I mean, if they're up for grabs, why not, right? If there's no like massive insurrection or anything like that, why not? I think that the Russians will return some of those regions to the proper, the original, I guess, or pre-Soviet ownership of those regions. Russians are using the snail offensive tactic. Yeah, basically. I mean, you got to just take into consideration that there are probably over like 6 million mines placed in Ukraine. During the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the Zaporozhye region, it was estimated that the Russians put 450,000 mines in that area. And just for reference, the Russians also put 400,000 mines down during the Battle of Kursk. So it's just the whole place is like a bomb. Anywhere you step, you can lose a foot or a tank or whatever. Question. When shells hit central Donetsk, where do they leave from? Right outside of Avdiivka or Marinka, basically any of the areas within the range. But Avdiivka is a big one, and that's the reason why there's an emphasis on pushing there, as well as Avdiivka being the key to most of southern Donetsk or Donbass. Let's see. I saw one more question. Do you think that Russia and China are coordinating with the Houthis? No, I do not. I think that the Houthis are an Iranian proxy. I don't think that the Iranians are making their own decisions. I think a lot of people have this idea that there's like a global cabal going right now on both sides, where it's like the US controlling all of its proxies and then like China and Russia controlling like Iran and North Korea. There's a lot more autonomy than I think people actually believe. And these places act in their own interests quite often and not as some giant unit. I doubt the Russians have hardly any conversations about the Houthis unless they're extremely worried that the Houthis are going to do something that will negatively impact themselves, impact the Russians or the Chinese. Like I said, own self-interest sort of deal. But that's not happening because the Houthis are only targeting shipping going to Israel. So it's not really affecting the Chinese economy or the Russian economy. Thank you for providing another good war update channel in addition to military summary. Well, I love that you are comparing me to military summary channel. I am not on his level of consistency or showmanship, but I definitely try. I try to be more of a layman's explainer of this stuff to people because I find it's more interesting to have these actual conversations than just like geeking out and talking about like hyper specifics and extremely nuanced topics. It's just not for me. I like to kind of generalize and make jokes and mess around while I'm doing this with you guys. And I love doing this live so you guys can ask questions too. It's really cool. If anybody has any more questions, get them in right now. And then I think I'm going to wrap this up. So let's see if you guys have any more questions. Let's get them thrown up in there. I thought I brought my water over here, but I don't think I did. You're getting more relaxed at this, getting better and better. Thank you, man. I'm trying. I'm not like nervous or anything. It's just I got this really dumb mouth. My brain is like working in overtime all the time. If I type out a paper, it's beautiful, but my mouth stumbles and the words get mixed up. So I'm definitely trying, and I really appreciate you saying that. Let's see. AI. Okay. Let's see. Who would win in a tank battle in War Thunder? Hold on. Where was that one? Who would win in a Ukraine or Russia? Yeah, probably Russia. War Thunder is a kind of a biased game as it is. So, let's see. Thanks for mentioning Gonzalo Lira. Yeah, I talked to him a lot. He would ask me questions about stuff, the military side of stuff in Ukraine. We had a lot of private conversations. He was on the podcast a couple times, and it just sucks, man. I tried to talk to him about getting out. I tried to help him get out when he was leaving. Brian Berletic is pretty close, not close with him, but a very, very strong advocate for Gonzalo Lira, and it's just another political prisoner. That's basically all it is. Hey man, big fan of yours. I'm kind of interested why Russia isn't supporting the Kurdish militias. Because the Kurdish militias are, well, first off, they're a horrible bet. I don't know if you've ever seen what's happened to the Kurds over the decades and centuries, but it's not particularly super strong. It's not a good investment, and the Kurds are also a direct proxy of the United States, so they often act against Russian interests. A super chat from Sandy Banks said, do you think Poland will host the F-16s considering Putin has stated that part of Western Ukraine will go to Poland after victory? No, I don't think you'll see any weapons staged in NATO countries that will be used in Ukraine. That's just not going to happen. That risk is way too high. That's like nuclear war. That's just inviting nuclear war. So no, I do not believe that that's going to happen. And if it was going to happen, it would have already happened, in my personal opinion. Against Turkey, since Turkey isn't so much against Russia. Am I against Turkey? I don't really have. I see Turkey as just kind of this like middleman for everybody. They play both sides. They are very they are all about their own self-interests. So I mean, I just don't really have, I don't particularly care one way or the other. Let's see. What is this question? What game am I playing at the moment? Well, I always play Dota 2. That's like my game since I was like 16. That's my jam. I also play Rainbow Six sometimes. I play a lot of RPGs with my girlfriend. She likes to play those. So we played like Last of Us through. We played all the Fallouts through again for me, first time for her, and now we're playing World of Warcraft together. So that's fun. Let's see. Any more questions? What about your leadership? What is their position on Russia? Oh, wait, sorry. That's a question for somebody else. All right, that's where I'm going to wrap it up today, guys. Been 52 minutes, so this has been a long one already. I appreciate everybody coming in. If you want to support me, follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to my YouTube, like and comment on this live stream. That would help me so much, guys. That gets me promoted on the YouTube algorithm, gets me out there to more people. I want this to become better and better. So I really appreciate all of you doing that. If you want to support me fiscally, you can do that through super thanks or super chats, super stickers, that sort of stuff. And also on Patreon, you can find my Patreon in my, I believe it's my Twitter profile. It's definitely on my Telegram. So you guys can find that there. I appreciate all of you, and I will probably do one of these tomorrow. I have a lot more time on my hands now, so these live streams are going to be much, much more regular. Take care, everybody, and stay healthy. I love you all. Bye.